Welcome to another edition of the Global Hope Show. We're a panel of students, community members, talking about good community issues. Let's get started by introducing our panel.
My name is Stephen. I'm a new Hilo resident, and I'm trying to start a new community newspaper here in Hilo.
I'm Shelley, and I'm an HCC student.
Saul, HCC student.
Mike Purvis, UH Hilo student.
My name's Rachel. I'm also a Hawaii Community College student.
And I'm Bob, a retired resident.
And I'm Danny Lee, community member.
Okay, so our issue today is we're going to discuss...
Well, so far, I mean, since it's such close proximity to March 20th, what does that mean? Doesn't that ring a bell, March 20th?
Actually, it was March 19th, 7 years ago. The U.S., under supposedly different administration, started an illegal war to attack a country that didn't do anything to the United States, and it's still going on, unfortunately. And in fact, it's now morphed into a second war. So there is going to be actually there's a national march in Washington D.C. this weekend, and actually locally there's also going to be a rally here in Hilo on Saturday. But I think this is just, we definitely need a lot more people to speak up, because it's just unbelievable that, it's over $1 trillion but it's more than just money, it's obviously lives. I mean, apparently more than 1 million Iraqis have been killed as a result of the violence that was launched from that invasion.
Yeah, and on the news you'll see our soldiers that have died. They'll show that. But do they ever show the amount of Iraqi people that have been killed today? No, we never hear about that. It's really sad.
This didn't really morph into another war. We began in Afghanistan with what at the time they thought was sort of legal retribution, but really from my perspective it was never legal. Any of it was ever legal. But then Mr. Bush decided to go to Iraq. And now Mr. Obama, for some unknown reason, even though he's getting us out of Iraq slowly but surely, seems to have massively increased the war in Afghanistan. It's totally beyond my understanding why he feels that this is so important to America's security. It's just unbelievable to me that he could do this.
Well, it's much easier to get into a war than get out of a war. I think that's history has definitely shown.
When you say that, how do you get out of it? How do we get out of it?
Well, is that a consensus that we have to get out of it? I mean, it's
Yeah, it's pretty much a consensus among the public.
that the war in Afghanistan has been a failure. I don't know that that's a consensus. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people who think it's a failure, but there's probably a lot of people who think that it's still doing some good. I don't know enough about it to actually argue one way or the other.
Do you have information from polls, Danny? I know you're really into the...
I don't have specific numbers, but I'm pretty sure
I
don't have actual source, but I know that there's been polls that have done not only in the United States, but especially more importantly, like in Afghanistan, 80% of the people want foreign troops out. I mean, there's no question about that.
And we've really led, as a country, we've led in exportation of troops and weapons and military engagement. We've been engaged militarily in many places now, and Colombia is another place where we have military advisors, and we're building up military weapons in that country. Afghanistan, Iraq, Korea, we still have troops there in spite of the population not wanting us to be there. Japan, Okinawa is a terrible thorn in the side of the Japanese government because the people there don't want the base. Now that happened in Puerto Rico, and we finally moved the base out. In the Philippines, we finally moved that base out. Now apparently we're moving it in again. I'm not sure what our propensity to push our military beyond our borders seems to be about. I guess maybe the attack on the towers and on Washington, D.C. a few years ago might be cited as an example of why we need to have more troops out there. But we had an awful lot of troops out there when that attack occurred. I don't know that really is a valid argument. But it's an issue. Why do we put our troops out there, and I don't know how many other countries do that, but
Well, we're forcing Europe into this war against their best judgment because they have decided after many centuries of fighting that they don't want to fight anymore. And so Mr. Gates is over there urging them to send more troops to Afghanistan. They're not about to do that. The Japanese also are not interested in expanding their war efforts, but we're forcing them to increase their military budget and to spend more. So it's the United States. After all, there must be a lot of interest among our industrialists to keep the wars going because we are the leading world exporter of arms, in which our middle class makes a lot of money. So I think there is a lot of interest in America to keep the wars going because after all, it's the poor who die. It's not us, the middle class.
I'm always, so, I lived in this country after 9/11, and I don't remember any protests whatsoever about sending U.S. troops to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very easy now to sit back and say, well, we shouldn't be there, we're going to bring our troops home, and it's a waste, and it's this, and it's that. But the fact of the matter is that the huge majority of American and Western European populations supported the war in Afghanistan after 9/11. And I think it's rank hypocrisy to actually sit back now and use it as a stick to beat either the Bush administration or the Obama administration. It was a very popular military decision back then. The fact that it isn't now is not really Obama's fault, and it's not really George Bush's fault, frankly.
But we can still change our mind and say, let's get the hell out of there. And it's not like we have to stick to what we believed back then. If someone's going to get us out of this, it's going to be the president. So we're going to urge whoever's the president to get us out of there. So, we can't just stick to our guns right after our feelings of 9/11. We got to look back, be smart about it and urge whoever's in charge.
Well, it's pretty obvious that if the U.S., and by the way, its equal number of foreign troops pulled out, the Taliban would move straight back in. And then it's a total waste, right? Then it's a complete waste.
No, I disagree. And I would say I was in Washington, D.C. right after that 9/11 attack, and there were 10,000 other people there protesting this move into Afghanistan. 10,000. And it was not a unanimous, everybody wanted to go into Afghanistan. That's not the way it was. And there was a member of Congress, actually, that voted against us going there. Only one.
That makes
Barbara Lee.
point very
Well,
well
that
taken.
does make my point. The one out of 450, or the
One
550 congressmen voted against it.
Right,
That's pretty
right.
that's pretty unanimous.
Right. Well, that's not unanimous. That's not unanimous, and she has garnered an enormous amount of support now because of that.
Well, there was, it wasn't a very large majority of Americans who wanted to go and beat the Nazis in World War II. I don't think, I'm not, those kind of arguments, though.
Okay, we're going to take a question from the audience.
Well, how many of the people who committed the 9/11 event were from Afghanistan? How many from Saudi Arabia?
No, so just for the audio, she asked how many people who committed the 9/11 attacks were from Afghanistan, how many were from Saudi Arabia. And I think that really speaks to kind of like the temper that I felt the population going through was like, right when we go into the war in Iraq, people didn't really care. They're just like, oh yeah, Muslims attacked us, Muslim country, go get them. We didn't. I think a lot of people just were kind of uninformed.
It was a media snow job. It was just like the Spanish-American War. Hearst created that. Hearst newspapers created the Spanish-American War. And our media, obviously you guys never heard of 10,000 people in Washington, D.C. protesting the war.
Right.
Why not?
Not only that, I think the media did definitely play a part in whipping up. They didn't expose the fact that, in fact, the Taliban actually was saying it offered to offer up Osama bin Laden to an international court if the United States would give out proof. Bush just completely ignored it. Says, nope, we're going to attack anyway. We won't take your word. So it was completely unjustified. It was not. They did offer to. They said, give us the evidence, and we'll put him up to a neutral court. Didn't happen. Forced took over.
We had the United Nations. We had after the 9/11 attacks, the whole world was behind us. And then when we went into Iraq, we had the whole world against us. The whole world demonstrated. Never before in the history of the world had so many people in so many places come out to demonstrate against an action by one country.
Because I believe that people didn't